Alright guys, so now we're going to get started in Maya. Before we do this, the expectation is that you've already downloaded and installed Maya 2018 or a newer version of it. You also need to make sure that you download the class asset files and you've moved these to the document folder on your computer. In this exercise, we're going to be covering setting our project, navigating between views, using the outliner, adding reference, moving around the scene, and moving and scaling and rotating parts into position. So there's quite a bit that we have to cover here, but it's a fun little project of putting Mr. Potato Head back together, so it should make it interesting. So over here you can see inside of my Finder window, and I just clicked on the little happy Finder guy down here to launch this. I'm in my Documents folder, and I do have my 3DF Materials folder inside of here. Project Reference is where we're going to get to the models that we can model on our own, so level 1, 2, and 3. So don't forget, this week you're going to be modeling the coil, which for you guys is probably inside the level 1 folder, and then you're going to have to pick one other of these to model on your own. The assets that we're going to use for this project though are inside the activities file, which is a Maya project. So I'm going to show you how to set a Maya project. We're going to open these files together, and then later on we're going to learn how to create a Maya project of our own. So once you have Maya installed and these files downloaded and saved to your documents section, let's launch Maya and go ahead and get started. So I moved Maya to my dock so I can launch it right down here. And you can see I have multiple versions, so some of these are older versions. If you want to do this yourself, you can go to your Applications folder. So launch your Finder and go to Applications. You can go inside of Autodesk. So I'm going to scroll up top here. So the Autodesk folder, you should only have Maya 2018, and then just drag this maya.app file or app launcher down to your dock. And if I were to drop it here, it would add another version of Maya. And then you can just come down here to launch it anytime you want. So to get the Mr. Potato Head files inside of here, we're going to want to go to File, Set Project, and this is the first thing you ever do when you're working inside of Maya, is either create a new project if you're starting something new, or set your project if you're working on something older. I'm going to go to my Documents, and I'll go to my 3DF Materials and Activity Files, and this is my project, so I want to be selected on the Activity Files folder and click Open. Let me try that again. File, Set Project, Interesting. Let me see if it actually did it though. If I go to Open Scene, so it did do it. I know it set the project because if I go to the drop down here, it's finding those activity files. It also has all my scenes in here. So even though I was getting an error down here, I just checked by trying to open a file, and it looks like it worked. So let's keep moving on. I'm going to look for the Potato Head file and click Open, and I'm not going to save. I'm going to continue, and this one is also not a big deal, so I'm going to click OK. Oh, looks like I selected my wrong Wacom pen. Give me one moment. Okay. So your file will not have some of this stuff put in order. So I was working on this last night in lab. So these guys will be a bit more chaotic. So you shouldn't see the hat, the nose, or the eyes in the correct spot. So let me move those off. You also will not have these reference images. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those out. And let me just kind of scramble them up a bit more here. Excellent. Alright, so the first thing, in order to put Mr. Potato Head back together, you're going to need some reference. And this is one of the first things you're always going to do in Maya, is add your reference to the scene. So to navigate through the actual viewports, I'm going to hit spacebar, and it should bring up 4 different distinct views. At the bottom, each view is named, so you have your top, perspective, front, and side. We're going to be going through all these views. If you do not see 4 views when you hit spacebar, you can always click between these 2 icons on the left. One obviously bringing you to the 4 views, one bringing you to just 1 view. I have my outliner on the left right here, which will allow us to get between kind of these pieces and parts. If your outliner is not on the left, what you can do is always kind of dock it on your own. So any one of these menus you can rip off, you can close, and then for something like the outliner, I can go to Window, Outliner to open it, and if you grab the top, I can just dock it on the side there, right? So you have the ability to kind of dock these windows where you would like, sort of play around with them. But when we're first starting, I would say have the outliner open and the channel box. So the channel box you can open with the tab on the right. If you're not seeing this tab, make sure you're in Maya Classic. So on this drop down, Maya Classic, and you can click this guy right here, and it should jump to the channel box. So you should have a similar setup to what we're seeing here. Knowing that we can jump between views hitting spacebar, so I'm going over each one of these windows and just hitting spacebar to kind of make them full screen and then go back out to the 4 views. We're going to start with the top view. I'm going to hit spacebar, and the images are going to come in really small, so I can teach you how to scale them. So I'm going to hit 4 on the keyboard to go into wireframe mode. So by hitting 4, I can go to wireframe. By hitting 5, I can see the shaded version of this. So I'm going to hit 4. With it in wireframe mode, we can see through everything, so it makes it easier to see parts that are stacked on top of each other. I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to Image Plane, Import Image. Alright, so you should see 3DF materials, activity files, source images, and then the source images here. If it doesn't launch like this and you're not in the images that are right here, it means you did not set your Maya project properly, and you should go back to the beginning of this video and watch it through again. If you are seeing these images, since we are in the top view, you can see on the bottom of the window it says top. I'm going to select Potato Top, and this is the top view of Mr. Potato Head. We're going to leave it just like this for now. We'll end up scaling it up, but I want to scale all 3 images together. So I'm going to hit spacebar. I'm going to go to the front view and hit spacebar, and then I'll go View, Image Plane, Import Image, and I'm going to grab Potato Front. So the image is called Front View. I'm going to grab Potato Front, and I'm going to hit Open. I'm going to hit spacebar on the view to go back to 4. I'm going to hover over the side view, hit spacebar, and now I'm going to go View, Image Plane, Import Image, and then I'm going to grab Potato Side. So it says Side View, I want my side view. I'm going to click Open. So we have the 3 image planes in here, and we can actually see them in the outliner. So if I click the first one, hold down Shift and click the image plane 3, it's going to select all 3 image planes at once. I can now hit R on my keyboard, and R is for scaling objects. So if I grab the blue box in the center, you can see it's turning yellow as I hover over it. That's going to scale equally in all directions. So I'm going to grab this one and move to the right, and that's going to scale up. If I move to the left, it would scale it back down. So I'm just going to scale this up until it's about the size of the body of Mr. Potato Head that's out there. Now if you have a 3-button mouse, I'm zoomed in pretty close here. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt key on my keyboard, and I'm going to middle mouse and scroll to the left, and that'll zoom out. If I scroll to the right, that would zoom in. Right? So left is out, right is zooming in. If I wanted to move around, that's going to be my right mouse button, and I'm going to be able to kind of move around that scene. So get used to being able to move and zoom in and out. I'm going to hit spacebar and go into my perspective view now. And one other option that we have is Option Alt, so hold that down, and then if you use your left mouse button, that allows you to rotate around any perspective window. So what I'm going to do now is I want these images scaled about the size of Mr. Potato Head's body. So if you select his body, and you can do it through the outliner where it says Potato Body, or you can click on the object inside of Maya, and you hit W on your keyboard, this is going to allow me to move Mr. Potato Head to be about lined up with the images. So you can see my images are scaled about the correct size. Your Mr. Potato Head, you may have to move and rotate into position. So if you have to rotate, just hit E, and then you can grab any one of these to get him rotated in the proper direction. If you make a move that you're not happy with, just hit Command Z, and that will get you back to the beginning. Okay. So now that my images are scaled up to the right size, I want to make sure that all three views make sense. And I would say the front view and the side view make sense together. And actually, yeah, the top view, it looks like the nose is in the right spot. So all these views should work, but I'm going to select them one at a time. And I'm going to move the top image plane down. So when I'm looking down on the model, I'm not having this obstruct my view. I'm going to take the front image plane and move it backwards. And I'm going to take the side image plane, and let's see which side view we have here. So as I'm out here, or as I'm in this view, I'm going to hit 5 to bring up the shaded mode. I'm going to select that image. And if I move it one way, you can see it's going to cover up all my pieces. I want to move it the opposite direction. So now these are no longer obstructing like my views for building Mr. Potato Head. I hit spacebar to get back into this view, and I'm going to go to Show and just hide image planes. So I'm going to uncheck image planes. So in my perspective view, I can kind of just see what the final Mr. Potato Head looks like by himself. And in these three views, I'm going to have the image plane to use to line Mr. Potato Head up. So I like jumping between 4 and 5, which is wireframe and shaded, to kind of help me line these pieces up. So I'm going to start with his body, and I'm going to use R anytime I need to scale something. I'm going to use W anytime I need to move it. And if I have to rotate it, I'm going to hit E. So I'm going to look at his body in all three views, and we just want to get kind of as close as possible. But this assignment isn't meant for exact precision, so you want to just be really close, right? I'm going to go to the eyes next. So once the body's in place, we can kind of start plugging in the parts. So I'll hit W to move. And again, mine are probably in a different place than yours, just because I had done this in lecture yesterday with everyone. And we can even use the perspective view. I can see these are maybe too big, or actually maybe just too high. So I'm actually lining them up with those holes before I kind of push them back into place. Right, so we can sometimes, in this exercise, we can gauge certain things from the perspective view as well. So let's go ahead and grab his pants. And his pants, again, will be in a different spot, but I can just move those right up into place. Left ear. So you're going to use move, scale, and rotate to get Mr. Potato Head put back together. Once you have them all put back together, we need to have the scene nice and clean and ready to pass on to, let's say, the animation department or the texturing department. So you're going to go through each one of these, and we basically want our scales to read as 1s all the way down, and the rest of these to read as zeros. So we're going to go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, and that's going to clean up your scene. So when you pass the scene on, everything should be named, which we've already done for you. If you want, you can go through and name these image planes. So instead of image plane 1, you could go underscore top. Image plane 2 would be underscore front. And if you did these in the same order as me, they should be the same image planes. But I'm also looking out in the views here. Actually, those are named wrong. Top, front. Nope, they're accurate. So top, front, and side. Yeah. And then I spelled side wrong. There we go. So your job is to finish this off as we did last night inside of class, but just make sure Mr. Potato Head's put all back together and all pieces are following the